And this Raila came and they said Kibaki Tosha, and it was Kibaki Tosha. And to some extent, Kenya was liberated from economical challenges. Roads came up. It is a transition. He has hoodwinked everybody to just imagine that he's fighting for us, and he's not. Enemy number 2 will be Ruto. Enemy number 3 will be Uhuru Kenyatta. Enemy number 4 will be Moi family. This is the time to call for total overhaul of the entire system. Total overhaul.
Neutral number. The most dangerous players in politics are often the quietest. Ndindi Nyoro's silence is being read not as hesitation, but as allegiance. The claim, he could be one of Ruto's confusion agents in Mount Kenya, helping split the region's vote from the inside. While others fire shots openly, a proxy moves in shadows, shaping the battlefield without lifting a weapon. If this is true, then Nyoro may be more of a threat to his own backyard than Gachagua ever was. Let's unpack why silence might speak the loudest here. Before we move on, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Why are the loudest critics of Ruto not the most feared? Because silence can be sharper than shouting. In the political storms of Mount Kenya, the one man who has drawn the most whispers isn't known for fiery speeches, but for calculated quiet. Since the moment Gachagua faced impeachment, observers have waited for Ndindi Nyoro to reveal his hand. Yet he has done something far more unsettling. He has kept it hidden.
That we may go to the vote and bring brand new MCS, brand new MPs, brand new governors, and brand new senators and women reps, brand new people from unknown families, people that are so down. And then, because we have the power, we have it, remove these systems of the presidents, the Rutos, the Kibaki, the Uhurus, everything. We remove it completely. And then we create our own. Whether they are experienced or not experienced, we create their own.
Would that even be possible?
It is possible. It is possible. If with Kibaki we did it. Yote yawezekana bila Moi.
This posture has become a puzzle, a man brimming with ambition, and an MP whose grassroots influence is undeniable, has suddenly dulled his own voice at a time when Mount Kenya desperately seeks clarity. He avoids fiery rallies, he tempers his statements, and he leaves every answer half complete. For his critics, this has not inspired respect. Instead, it raises suspicion. Why would a leader who once built his brand on confidence and conviction suddenly embrace neutrality at the very moment unity is needed? This is where the shadow of political trickery creeps in. In Africa's political history, there have always been leaders who appeared to sit on the fence, but in reality, they were loyal to powerful masters pulling strings quietly in the background. They were what some call confusion agents. Their role is never to dominate the conversation, but to lull those around them into misreading their intentions. A distraction here, a half answer there, and suddenly people find themselves undercut by someone they thought was harmless. For Nyoro, this suspicion has only deepened because of moments caught in public. Picture him confronted directly with a sharp question of allegiance. Will you stand firmly with Ruto, or will you back Gachagua? Instead of offering clarity, his answer drifted into vague statements about unity, development, and serving the people. Safe words, yes, but shallow when read against the roiling crisis in Mount Kenya politics. That dodge wasn't harmless. It was a signal. Leaders rarely say less because they have nothing on their minds. They say less because the truth is too loaded to lay bare. And here lies the danger. Neutrality is never neutral in politics. To sit silently when factions are forming is to choose a side, even if done in whispers. It is a strategy that rewards patience because time reveals which camp collapses under pressure. Once the dust clears, the silent one emerges as the trusted compromise, the one both sides feel forced to accept. Yet this is not born of fairness, but of careful calculation. History is filled with such examples. In Kenya's past, there were figures who kept quiet during critical national conflicts, presenting themselves as brokers while quietly feeding from the patronage of the ruling powers. Later, when their allegiances came to light, many realized neutrality had been a mask. It bought them credibility with the people, but it also secured trust from those in power who valued quiet loyalty over loud rebellion. So what if Nyoro is scripting the same play? Imagine this silence as an instrument. Instead of engaging in the noisy tug-of-war with Gachagua, he uses restraint to appear unthreatening. As tension rises between the factions, trust begins to fracture. Communities keep asking, where does he stand? And in that uncertainty, he consolidates not through charisma or open rebellion, but through the very absence of clear words. That influence is subtle and far more lasting than a rallying cry. That is why silence makes him dangerous. It disarms suspicion in the short term, but it anchors strategy in the long term. This is not simply about one man holding back his voice. It is about a blueprint where silence shapes an entire region's destiny. And when silence itself becomes a weapon, you begin to realize the game reaches beyond Nyoro into a larger playbook designed to keep Mount Kenya guessing. What if history is not repeating itself by accident, but by design? Kenya's political terrain has long been shaped by strategies that appear new, but are in fact borrowed, recycled, and rebranded. When observers speak about the silence of Ndindi Nyoro and the uncertainty of Mount Kenya's choices, they point to something larger than one man's ambition. They see a carefully crafted pattern, one that echoes the late Daniel Arap Moi's mastery of holding power through fragmentation. To weaken a rival, Moi didn't always fight directly. He split their base, set them against each other, and kept his own influence intact. The suggestion is that President Ruto may be employing that very playbook today. During Moi's era, competition rarely unfolded as a clear battle between equals. Instead, multiple small parties would sprout, giving voters the illusion of choice while splintering strong blocks of opposition. Each faction chipped away at unity, leaving only one real victor, the man who sponsored the confusion in the first place. That is the allegation now being whispered in Mount Kenya's corridors of power, that what looks like organic division is in reality orchestrated. The mechanics of this strategy are both simple and devastating. One doesn't need to crush the strongest rival outright. It is often enough to elevate weaker opponents, build them up with resources, ensure they stay loud and visible, and in doing so, drain away energy that would otherwise consolidate behind a single challenger. Then, once their usefulness has run its course, those projects are discarded as quickly as they were created. This cycle of elevating and discarding keeps leaders guessing and destroys trust in genuine challengers. There are cautionary tales of aspirants who once walked into offices filled with what they thought were loyal allies, only to learn months later that those same allies were feeding information to the state machinery. The meetings felt natural. They were offered promises of support, generous funding, even staged encouragement in the media. But the real motive was not their success. It was to ensure they soaked up oxygen in the crowded space of resistance, diverting attention from stronger voices that could threaten the center of power. By the time the truth surfaced, momentum was lost, and their brief spark had burned out for someone else's gain. Money, influence, and access operate as the silent weapons in this cycle. Campaigns fed with quiet funding suddenly rise from obscurity, their leaders flashing borrowed strength without questioning its source. Radically weaker actors become overnight competitors, only to vanish after the purpose is served. And because every new faction claims legitimacy, the true opposition begins to appear confused, quarrelsome, and scattered, which of course achieves the goal. No single movement holds the ground long enough to present a direct threat to the ruling seat. Names like Kangata are often floated into this conversation, not because of open betrayal, but because neutrality is itself suspect under this frame. A politician who constantly insists they belong to no camp, who patiently refuses to be drawn into open fights, fits neatly into a system that rewards uncertainty. Their silence serves not to protect communities, but to maintain the architecture of engineered division. It turns individuals into placeholders, waiting to be activated at the right moment when fragmentation is most useful. And here is the heart of the matter. Mount Kenya's apparent divisions may not be the unpredictable breakages that surface in heated politics. They may be the outcome of a deliberate design, one shaped not by chance but by playbooks old enough to be familiar yet sharp enough to still work. Silence, neutrality, and projects created from outside influence are not random events. They form a deliberate method, one that weakens unity and reshapes leadership into something controllable. When leaders avoid clarity, it is not simply hesitation, it is part of a wider structure that keeps communities uncertain and vulnerable. That is why it matters for citizens to think loudly, to question alignments, and to refuse the comfort of neutrality. Manipulation hides in plain sight, and while Nyoro may not appear as Mount Kenya's greatest threat, history shows that the quietest figure in a power struggle often carries the sharpest edge.